Tonight, for the first time, two key witnesses in the impeachment inquiry told lawmakers. What they told lawmakers, we now have the transcripts of their depositions before the three House impeachment committees. These are two long-standing State Department professionals with 7 decades of experience between them. Michael McKinley, his former senior advisor to Secretary of State Pompeo, and Marie Yovanovitch, former ambassador to Ukraine. She was forced out of her post. He resigned from the Foreign Service and gave 2 reasons. Because what they said is so significant and at times mysterious, we're going to do something a little bit different tonight and read some of the most important passages word for word. And we'll try to link up the moments that really build a narrative that, according to these 2 officials, illustrate a State Department in Washington operating at cross purposes from diplomats around the world, and a White House that was undermining those diplomats for purposes that seemed to have more to do with President Trump's political interests than U.S. national security. We'll start with the sworn statements of the former senior advisor to Secretary of State Pompeo, Ambassador Michael McKinley. Quote, "The timing of my resignation," he testified, "was the result of 2 overriding concerns. The failure, in my view, of the State Department to offer support to foreign employees caught up in the impeachment inquiry, and second, by what appears to be the utilization of our ambassadors overseas to advance domestic political objectives." In other words, as both he and Ambassador Yovanovitch made clear in their testimony, using the people and institutions of government, or as you'll see, bypassing them, for private personal aims. Their testimony reflects what they saw and heard as people connected to the president from in and out of the government work to influence the government of Ukraine and squeeze it for the president's political advantage. Specifically, the president's Ukraine envoy, Kurt Volker, European Union ambassador and campaign donor Gordon Sondland, and Rudy Giuliani. As Ambassador McKinley tells it, quote, "What is clear is that both Volker and Sondland were engaging the Ukrainian government in conjunction with Rudy Giuliani on domestic political issues." It's clear from Ambassador Yovanovitch's testimony that Giuliani's efforts in Ukraine were extensive, involving her specifically, dating back to late last year. Quoting her now, "Basically, it was people in the Ukrainian government who said that Mr. Lutsenko, the former prosecutor general, was in communication with Mayor Giuliani and that he had plans and that they were going to, do things, including to me. It became clear," she said, "that the goal was removing her from her post. One point of contention, her alleged role in blocking Giuliani's effort to bring ousted Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin to the U.S., apparently in pursuit of Giuliani's political mission for the president. Following long-standing protocol, an American consular officer denied him a visa because of his alleged ties to large-scale corruption." Now remember, President Trump and Giuliani, they are now claiming that all they care about was fighting corruption in Ukraine. But the guy they are trying to bring to the U.S. is himself considered corrupt by diplomats who actually know about corruption in Ukraine. Ambassador Yovanovitch picks up the story, quote, "And the next thing we knew, Mayor Giuliani was calling the White House as well as the Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs, saying that I was blocking the visa for Mr. Shokin and that Mr. Shokin was coming to meet him and provide information about corruption at the embassy, including my corruption." Now, keep in mind, Rudy Giuliani is the president's personal attorney at the time. He had no formal role in government, hasn't sworn to serve U.S. national interests. He's working for the president, doing whatever he can for the president, and we should also point out, has business dealings himself in Ukraine. So maybe there's a money motive for Giuliani as well. As you might imagine, none of what Giuliani was saying about the ambassador made Ms. Yovanovitch a favorite back in Washington. But as she testified, the career Foreign Service officer felt stymied, saying, quote, "It's not like I sent in a formal cable outlining everything," she says. "It felt very, very, very sensitive and very political." And this, she said, was making top Ukrainian officials uneasy. She describes a conversation with the Ukrainian Interior Minister in February. Question, "What were his concerns as expressed to you?" Yovanovitch replied, he thought it was very dangerous that Ukraine, since its independence, has had bipartisan support from both Democrats and Republicans all these years, and that to start kind of getting into U.S. politics, into U.S. domestic politics, was a dangerous place for Ukraine to be. It became dangerous as well for her. Donald Trump Jr. tweeted about her in March, referring to her as a joker. She was singled out during a segment on Hannity by name. She raised concerns about it to Gordon Sondland, another of the president's emissaries. Sondland, she says, told her, and I quote, "You need to go big or go home. You need to, tweet out there that you support the president and that all these are lies and everything else." And obviously that was advice. It was advice that I did not see how I could implement in my role as ambassador and as Foreign Service officer. So just let's think about this for a moment. The advice she says she got from the ambassador to the European Union, Sondland, who's a major Trump supporter and donor, was to say nice things about President Trump, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, that the EU ambassador tells her that the President of the United States is basically a sucker for compliments and can be manipulated by flattery. Another lesson she learned was that the road to the president also goes through Fox News. Here she's describing efforts she heard about to stop the attacks on her. Quoting the ambassador, "What I was told by Phil Reeker was that the secretary, or perhaps somebody around him, was going to place a call to Mr. Hannity on Fox News to say, what is going on? I mean, do you have proof of these kind of allegations or not? And if you have proof, tell me, and if not, stop." And I understand that call was made. I don't know whether it was or somebody else in his inner circle, and for a time, things kind of simmered down. By May, however, she was removed from her post. As for her departure from Kiev, she describes a conversation with the Foreign Service Director, the Director General, Carol Perez, who ordered her home. Quote, "She said that there was a lot of concern for me that I needed to be on the next plane home to Washington. And I was like, what? What happened? And she said, I don't know, but this is about your security. You need to come home immediately. You need to come home on the next plane." And I said, physical security? I mean, is there something going on here in the Ukraine? Because sometimes Washington has intel or something else that we don't necessarily know. And she said, no, I didn't get that impression, but you need to come back immediately. And I mean, I argued with her. I told her I thought it was really unfair that she was pulling me out of the post without any explanation. I mean, really none. And so summarily. Now, this is not, it is safe to say, how any of this is really supposed to work. Not the ambassador's removal, not career first aid through Twitter, not alleged phone calls to Hannity or the president's TV lawyer scuttling about, gathering dirt, not any of it. Or as Ambassador McKinley put it in his testimony, in 37 years in the Foreign Service in different parts of the globe and working on many controversial issues, working 10 years back in Washington, I had never seen that.